And please tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I would love to interact with you legends. Now to the story.
Alright, I'm not someone who usually goes on dates with guys I meet on apps, but this one seemed alright. His profile wasn't full of gym mirror pics or dead animals, which is rare lately. He looked normal, smiled with teeth. Played guitar or something, had a photo of him at a barbecue with mates. It felt chill. And we'd been talking for a couple of weeks, not just a quick "you up" or whatever, like actual conversations. He even asked about my dog. We agreed to meet at this food market kind of spot. It's under this train bridge, really grungy but trendy now. Lots of fairy lights and overpriced tacos. I wore my black cropped hoodie and jeans. Basic, but I wasn't trying to impress that hard. We grabbed some dumplings and shared a bench. He was already sitting when I arrived, and his phone was face down. Respect. Points for that. He talked a lot. Not in a bad way, just confidently. About his job, freelance tech stuff, about people watching, about how he's obsessed with decoding people's passwords for fun. That should have been a fly I'd have guessed, but I thought he meant like logic puzzles or word games or something. He said it like a joke. I laughed. Anyway, we're eating, chatting, and I realized I've had too much bubble tea and I need a toilet. I asked him to watch my stuff. Phone, jacket, bag, which again, I never usually do. But I don't know, it was a busy place. Seemed safe. There were people around. I was gone, 4 minutes? Maybe 5 tops. The toilet was grim, the kind where you hover and try not to breathe. When I came back, he was just scrolling his phone like nothing happened. Mine was still there on the table, screen down where I left it. But something was off. I couldn't explain it right away, just a feeling. We finished eating and wandered around a bit, looking at candles and handmade jewelry and some booth with air plants and test tubes. Normal stuff. We didn't buy anything. I wasn't feeling the vibe anymore, honestly. There was something about him. His eye contact got a little too intense, like he was trying to read my mind, or trap me in some kind of stare-off. He asked if I wanted to go somewhere quieter, like a bar nearby. I lied and said I had to be up early. He offered to walk me to the station when I told him I was meeting a friend. He didn't push, just gave me this weird little smirk and said he'd message me. I got home fine, nothing happened on the way. But when I went to put on Netflix later that night, I was logged out. Thought maybe I accidentally changed my password or something. Then I checked my banking apps, same thing. Logged out, which freaked me out immediately because I never get logged out of that. Like, ever. I tried to reset it, but the recovery email had been changed. Same with my Netflix. Same with my food delivery account. It hit me then hard. My stomach dropped like I was on one of those theme park rides. I checked my email. The inbox looked mostly normal, but when I went into security under settings, there were multiple login attempts I didn't recognize. Some successful. Some failed. I don't know how he did it. Maybe when I was in the toilet, he flipped over my phone, saw the Face ID unlock, and started poking around. Or maybe he guessed my email password from our earlier convo, when I stupidly joked that I still use my dog's name and birth year. I swear I said that in passing, but now I realize I basically handed it to him. He didn't drain my account or anything. He didn't buy anything weird or message anyone. He just took over. Locked me out like a warning. I stayed up the whole night resetting passwords, calling banks, switching emails. I used a different phone to try and message him on the app, but his profile was gone. Not unmatched. Gone, like he never existed. I reported it to the police. They said it was probably just phishing, and there wasn't much they could do unless there was a financial loss. I didn't even bother explaining the date thing. Felt stupid. I keep thinking about what he said about guessing passwords being a hobby. At the time, I thought he was showing off. But now I think he meant it, like he was testing something. Seeing if he could do it in real time. See the girl, smile, share food, steal her entire online life. I had to delete that email, change my bank, set up 2FA on everything. Took a break from socials, even deactivated Instagram for a bit. Not because of what he took, but because of how casual it all felt. Like he didn't need to threaten or follow me home or grab my wrist. He just sat there, polite and chill, and took everything. Sometimes I still check my inbox just to make sure nothing weird's going on. I don't even know if he's still watching, probably not. But I swear, that look he gave me when I said I had to leave, it wasn't disappointment. It wasn't even frustration. It was like he'd already won. It started off like one of those overly confident Hinge chats where the guy acts like he already knows you. He wasn't creepy, just too comfortable too fast. Like he'd reply to my story about cereal with some deep dive about childhood psychology and how nostalgia was a scam. It was a bit much, but I kind of liked the chaos. He was weird in a way that made him seem interesting. Different. We hadn't even been texting a full week when he invited me out. Said he wanted to take me somewhere chill, somewhere where I could meet everyone, which made me laugh. I thought he meant friends, or maybe like one or two people. Not a full-on family barbecue with kids running around, music lasting, uncles fighting over toms, and women in folding chairs watching me like I was on trial. He picked me up wearing this god-awful denim shirt, like something from an old western. I still went, though. I wore this long brown skirt and my cropped long sleeve, the one that kind of makes me look like I care without trying. I did my eyeliner better than usual, too. That ended up being a waste of effort. The place wasn't far. This bitty house in a quiet neighborhood where every other driveway had a truck. We walked into the backyard and it was like stepping into another planet. There were at least 30 people, half of them staring, the other half pretending they weren't. The grill was going, smoke everywhere, and I could hear someone blasting 90s R&B off a Bluetooth speaker near the shed. Kids darted between lawn chairs. There was a cooler full of cheap drinks and uncles arguing about sports near a folding table that had a stack of foil trays. He walked me around like a dog he just adopted. "This is her," I heard him say more than once. I smiled. I waved. I tried to look like I belonged, but inside I was kind of panicking. Nobody warned me this was a whole meet the family situation on day one. I stood near the cooler pretending to be really into choosing a drink, just to get a second to breathe. He wandered off to help someone set up a fire pit or something. That's when this guy walked over, older. Glasses, bit of a limp. He looked like someone's uncle that made bad jokes but gave good birthday cards. I didn't catch his name at first. He asked where I was from, what I did. Normal questions. I answered politely. Then he laughed at something I said. I don't even remember what, and suddenly it hit me, like a punch to the stomach. His voice. His laugh. It was like a recording I hadn't played in years just started playing in my head on full volume. The smell of the smoke. The way the kids were screaming in the background. The sound of his voice. I don't know how to explain it properly, but something inside me just cracked open like a rotten egg. I stared at him. He was still smiling. And then I just lost it. I didn't even feel it coming. It wasn't like building up or anything. It just snapped. I said his name out loud. Not the one I was introduced to, the other one. The one I remembered from when I was little. He looked confused. Said something. I don't even remember what he said because I was already yelling. Everything got quiet. I could hear the kids go silent. Even the music stopped. I called him out right there, in front of the grill, the plastic chairs, the entire family. Told him he ruined my childhood. That I recognized him. That I'd never forget his face. People were frozen. Some were whispering. Others just stood there holding their drinks like statues. My date came running over. He looked like someone slapped him. I could barely hear what anyone was saying anymore. My ears were buzzing. All I remember is picking up a half-empty bottle of beer from the table and hurling it at him. I missed. It hit the edge of the cooler and spilled everywhere. Someone grabbed my arm. Not hard, just enough to stop me from throwing something else. I was breathing heavy, crying without even realizing it. He, the uncle or whoever he was pretending to be, just stood there. Pale, like he'd seen a ghost. Maybe I was a ghost to him. Then came the panic, like actual panic. A few women rushed the kids inside. Someone started shouting about calling someone. I couldn't tell if they meant the cops or what. My date was saying my name over and over, trying to get me to calm down. But it was too late. I turned and walked straight through the side gate without waiting for him. I didn't even have my bag. I just kept walking. No one followed me, not right away. I had no clue where I was going, but I needed to get out of there. I texted one of my mates and dropped my location. She picked me up 10 minutes later. I was still outside someone's fence trying not to throw up. The guy messaged me that night. Said his family was in shock, that he didn't know anything. That his uncle had some stuff in the past, but never mentioned anything like that. He asked if I was okay. I didn't reply. I don't know what the truth is. I don't know if he really didn't know or if it was some twisted set. Maybe they thought I wouldn't remember. Maybe the uncle didn't even recognize me. I don't care. That was the last time I ever went to a stranger's house for a first date. If I ever say yes to another guy who lists family-oriented in his dating profile, just slap my phone out of my hand. This all started with a guy named Dan. He messaged me first on Bumble, which was already weird because usually guys like him wait for you to say something. His photos were normal, no car mirror selfies, no gym stuff, just him in front of murals and one with a baby goat. He gave off kind of weird but maybe in a fun way vibes. I like a little weird. That's not me, I guess. We chatted for maybe 3 days before he asked to meet. Said he had a spot with good food trucks and a nice park nearby. Seemed casual. He picked me up, which I know isn't the smartest thing, but we'd been voice messaging and he seemed okay. Plus, I had my location on with my best friend, and she was already roasting me for going out with a guy who owned cargo pants. Anyway, the first part of the date was fine. Chill. We walked around, got ice cream, sat by this duck pond. He made a few weird comments, like how he already felt like we'd known each other for years, or if this was a movie, this would be the meet cute. Stuff that's corny, but whatever. I've heard worse. We were heading back to the car when he casually dropped. Hey, before I take you home, can we swing by my uncle's real quick? I just need to grab something. That's exactly how he said it. Grab something. 5 minutes tops. I didn't think twice. We pulled up to this one-story house in a quiet neighborhood. The driveway had a bunch of cars squeezed into it, and I remember asking if there was a party or something. He just smiled and said it was always like this. I thought maybe his uncle had a bunch of roommates or lived with his siblings or whatever. I didn't know. I didn't care. I just wanted to sit for a minute and drink the rest of my iced tea. As soon as I stepped inside, I knew this wasn't a 5-minute errand. There were so many people. Older folks, little kids, teenagers with braces, aunties with gold bangles, everyone just chilling in the living room and kitchen like it was some reunion or birthday. There was food spread out on every counter and table, trays of rice, foil-covered pans of meat, 2 slow cookers plugged in next to each other. One guy was wearing an apron that said Grill Sergeant and carrying a massive jug of juice. I stood frozen for a second, still thinking maybe we were just grabbing something from the back. But Devin had already taken off his shoes and was hugging people, high-fiving some dude he'd pulled into side conversations like he'd been gone for months. I just stood there holding my drink like I was in a simulation. Then came the part that made my brain full-on lag. Devin grabbed my hand, walked me right into the middle of the living room where like 10 people were sitting around talking, and said, and I swear I'm not making this up, "This is her. This is my fiancée." I didn't even process the word at first. I thought maybe I heard wrong. Maybe he said friend, or something that just sounded like fiancé. But no. His aunt came up to me with a smile like she'd just seen Jesus, grabbed both my hands, and told me how beautiful I was. His cousin winked at me. Someone started clapping. Someone else yelled out that he finally found her. I wanted the ground to just open and eat me. I tried to laugh it off like he was joking, but no one else was laughing. His grandma came up and started talking about wedding colors. I swear to God she pulled out her phone to show me photos of flower arrangements. Devin just stood next to me, all proud, nodding like this was completely normal. I pulled him to the side and asked what the hell he was doing. He looked confused, like I was the problem. Said he just got caught up in the moment and that his family had been bugging him about settling down. He told me I was the first one worth showing off. The thing is, no one else thought this was weird, not even a little bit. It was like they were all in on it, like this was some rehearsed scene. I tried to leave and he begged me to just stay for dinner, so it wouldn't be awkward. I told him no. He tried to guilt trip me by saying his grandma had been sick and was looking forward to meeting me. I still said no. When I walked toward the front door, I noticed that someone had moved my shoes. They weren't where I left them. It took me a solid minute to find them, and when I did, they were sitting next to a bunch of little pink and white slippers, like some kid had tried to organize the footwear. I don't know why, but that part really freaked me out. Like I wasn't just a guest, I was being placed there, like I belonged already. He followed me out, trying to explain himself, but I just kept walking. Got in the car and told him to take me home. The whole ride was awkward. He said he didn't mean to freak me out, that he just really liked me, that he thought I'd understand once I saw how close his family was. I got dropped off without saying anything. Blocked his number. Took a long shower. told my best friend everything, and she just sat there with her jaw on the floor. The part that still gets me is how smooth he was with it, like this wasn't the first time he'd done it. Like maybe other girls didn't react like I did. Sometimes I wonder if they ever got the wedding they were all so ready for. I matched with her on a Tuesday, and by Thursday night we were sitting across from each other at dinner. That should have been the first red flag. Normally there's more lead up, a few days of banter, a phone call, maybe a weekend coffee. I'd learned to expect the slow roll, the cautious dance of dating apps. But she was pushy about meeting. Not in an aggressive way at first, just urgent. She said she didn't like wasting time, that she preferred guys who actually made plans instead of hiding behind texts. I'd been ghosted 3 times in a row, so when someone came at me with enthusiasm, it felt flattering. I told myself I was lucky. She picked a place, a mid-tier Italian joint downtown. The kind that tries too hard with mood lighting and truffle oil in every dish. I got there 10 minutes early. Button-up shirt, combed hair, decent cologne. I wanted to set the right tone. She arrived 10 minutes late in an oversized hoodie, leggings, and giant platform boots. No apology, no explanation. She just flopped into the chair like we were old friends meeting for a weekly ritual. Right away, I noticed the way she talked. Fast. Clipped. Like she was always 2 thoughts ahead of where the conversation actually was. She said she had a long week. Everything's going wrong, she groaned. I tried to lighten the mood with a joke about how I could probably top her in the bad luck department. She didn't even smile. Just stared at me for a solid second before launching into a rant about how people only think they've had it hard, but most wouldn't survive a single day in her life. I brushed it off. First date nerves. People overshare. I tried to redirect to something casual. Movies, food, music. She steamrolled right over it. She barely let me finish a sentence before she was off again, zigzagging between complaints and random tangents. When the waiter came for drinks, I ordered a beer. She asked for a double whiskey. It was a Thursday night. I don't judge, but it stood out. Then came the first real crack in the facade. She leaned across the table, elbows planted firmly, her hoodie sleeves dangling toward the bread basket. In this weirdly businesslike tone, she asked, "So, do you live alone?" I hesitated. Normally, I'd dodge that on a first date, but I was caught off guard. I said yes. I ran a 1-bedroom. I like my space. She gave me this wide smile, not a warm one. More like she just solved the puzzle. The bread and oil arrived. She barely glanced at it before dropping her bomb. "I'm being evicted tomorrow," she said. Casually, like she was ordering dessert. At first, I thought I misheard. I laughed nervously and asked if she meant she was moving. She shook her head. "No, my landlord's kicking me out. Non-payment. Tomorrow's my last day." She stabbed a piece of bread, chewed it once, then set it back down. "So I need somewhere to go." She said it so matter-of-factly I almost thought she was joking. But her eyes didn't blink. She went on. She'd been fighting it for a while, but she gave up. She was tired of bouncing between places. Then, without missing a beat, she asked if she could stay at mine. Not crash for the night. Move in. "Bring my stuff over," she said, waving her hand like we were discussing a weekend trip. "We'll figure it out from there." I laughed again, not because it was funny, but because my brain couldn't process anything else. But her face didn't move. She wasn't joking. She was deadly serious. I tried to play it off gently, told her it was a lot to drop on someone halfway through mozzarella sticks. She went cold, not angry loud, but this silent irritation settled over her, like I'd failed some unspoken test. She leaned back, crossed her arms, and started scrolling on her phone while I awkwardly nibbled at the appetizer. When the waiter brought her mains, she didn't even look up. I asked if she was still hungry. She muttered, "Not really." Then, out of nowhere, she asked about my lease. If pets were allowed. If it was a 1-bedroom or 2. I stopped answering. The silence was suffocating. I kept glancing around the restaurant, half expecting her to suddenly throw a drink at me or start yelling. Instead, she abruptly stood, grabbed her bag, and muttered, "I gotta handle something." No detail, no goodbye. Just gone. I sat there like an idiot, 2 plates of pasta steaming in front of me. 10 minutes passed, then 20. The waiter kept circling, giving me pitying glances. Finally, I asked for both meals to go, paid the bill, and walked out. In the car, I pulled out my phone. That's when I noticed she'd blocked me. On the app, on Instagram, even on WhatsApp, which I hadn't even given her. Clean slate, like I never existed. I shook my head, chalked it up to another bizarre dating story, and started the engine. But then I saw it, a voicemail from an unknown number. Her voice, calm, almost sweet. She said she hoped I enjoyed dinner. Said she was disappointed in me for not helping her when she clearly needed someone real. Her tone shifted halfway through, turning colder. She ended the message with 5 words that made my stomach drop. You'll see me again. That was 2 months ago. I haven't seen her since. But sometimes when I come home late, I pause at the door and jiggle the handle twice, just to make sure the deadbolt's turned. Every so often, I wake up in the night and swear I heard something on the stairs. And I think about her smile, the one she gave me when I said I lived alone. Like she'd already decided. Like my answer didn't matter. So yeah, this guy nearly drove me off the grid, literally. We matched on Hinge. His profile was simple, nothing tryhard. Black t-shirt, dog in one photo, liked road trips and horror movies. He messaged me first, said I looked like I had kind eyes. I don't, but thanks, I guess. Anyway, he seemed normal. Kind of dry in the way guys try to act mysterious, but I figured maybe he was just awkward. We chatted for 4 days, nothing deep, and then he asked if I wanted to grab dinner. Nothing fancy. Thai place downtown. Low stress vibes. He picked me up, which now that I think about it, I never should agree to. But I was tired. Uber was pricing like it was Coachella weekend, and I thought, what's the worst that could happen? He had this black car, not brand new, but spotless, like weirdly clean. No dust, no crumbs, no receipts in the side pockets. Just water bottles lined up in the back like he was expecting someone to comment on how prepared he was. He had one of those tree air fresheners dangling from the mirror. Vanilla scented. Fake sweet. Dinner itself wasn't bad. Conversation was kind of one-sided, mostly him talking about how everyone he dates doesn't get him. He said he was tired of shallow people and that women never wanted to go past surface level. I nodded and chewed my noodles, trying not to roll my eyes. I don't know, I wasn't getting creep vibes, just intense ones. Like first date therapy session. He paid the bill, walked me to the car, opened the door. Honestly, he was polite. The whole night felt like one of those dates that goes fine, but ends in a mutual ghosting. Until we got back in the car. I gave him my address, just the street, not the number. I always do that with people I don't know. He smiled and said he had a better idea before I could even finish saying the name of the road. I laughed a little, thinking he was joking. He wasn't. Instead of turning toward my area, he got onto the highway. At first, I thought maybe he just took the wrong entrance. Happens all the time. So I said it again more clearly. He nodded, tapped the steering wheel, and said, "Yeah, we'll head there after. I just want to show you something first. It's a surprise." That word, surprise, landed in my stomach like a rock. I asked him where we were going, and he just said, "You'll love it. Trust me." It was 9:48 p.m. I remember that because I checked my phone the second we passed the last streetlight before it got dark. The kind of dark where the only things lit are the road signs and whatever's coming out of your headlights. We were flying past exits I recognized, and past exits I didn't. I asked him again where we were going. This time, he said it was somewhere peaceful. I wasn't smiling anymore. I told him I needed to be up early, that I had stuff to do. He didn't respond. Just kept tapping his fingers and changing the song every 30 seconds like he couldn't settle on a vibe. The thing is, I didn't want to panic too soon. I didn't want to be dramatic, but I also didn't want to end up in the middle of nowhere with some guy who thought a surprise was romantic. I quietly turned off my phone's auto lock and pulled up my location to keep it on screen. Then I noticed we were down to one lane. No streetlights, no other cars. Just trees on either side and nothing else. That's when I said I wanted to go home. Straight up, no excuses. Just told him to take me back. He laughed. That weird, dry, emotionless laugh people do when they don't actually think something's funny. Said I was being impatient and that people always ruin the moment. That moment lasted way too long. He finally took an exit. I thought maybe he was turning around. He wasn't. He drove us into this clearing like a dirt pull-off on the side of a barely lit road. There was an old shack in the distance, no joke, and a rusted swing set behind a fence. The car's headlights lit up this patch of dead grass in front of us, and he parked like it was the most normal thing ever. Then he put the car in park and just sat there. Didn't say anything. Didn't move. I asked again what this was, what we were doing. He finally looked at me and said he used to come here when he was younger. Said it was a place to think. I told him I didn't want to be there. He didn't start the car. Just looked out the window and mumbled something I didn't catch. I started reaching for my door handle, trying not to make it obvious. My hand was shaking. I thought about running, but we were literally in the woods and I had no idea where the nearest anything was. I told him I had to pee. I don't know why I said that, it just came out. It was the only excuse that didn't sound like panic. That worked. He'd unlocked the doors. I got out slowly, walked around to the side of the car, then bolted. Didn't even look back. Ran into the woods. Full speed. Branches were hitting my legs and I almost tripped twice, but I kept going until I couldn't hear his footsteps behind me. I crouched behind a bush, pulled my phone out and sent my live location to my friend with one text. TL999 if I on a TTXT in 10. I turned the volume off, waited. It was silent, just crickets and wind. Eventually, I saw headlights again. I don't know if it was him driving off or circling back, but I stayed hidden. I didn't move until my friend called and told me she'd gotten my location and was on the way with her brother. When I got back to the road, I didn't see his car. He was gone. The next morning, his profile was gone too. Deleted or blocked. Either way, nothing left. No messages, no socials, nothing. Like he never existed. She walked in like she owned the bar. Not in that flashy overdressed way some people do, but in a smooth, locked-in kind of way, like she'd already lived the night 5 times in her head. Tight black dress, messy hair like she meant it to look that way, chipped red nails. She had this energy that made you sit up a little straighter without meaning to. I remember thinking, finally, someone interesting. We'd met a week earlier, barely chatted. Just enough for her to say she liked mescal and hated quiet men. Her messages had zero fluff. Straight to the point. Said she didn't like wasting time and wasn't into slow burns. I didn't know what that meant, but I was curious enough to say yes to a Friday drink. The bar she picked wasn't flashy. Kind of dim, some fake candles on the tables. The kind of place that plays older hip-hop, but not loud enough to make you yell. I got there first, grabbed a booth, and was halfway through my beer when she slid into the sea across from me and smiled like we were already in on some inside joke. I asked how her day was. She said productive, then changed the subject before I could ask anything else. She ordered 2 drinks at once. Told the bartender to keep it coming. I joked that I hoped she wasn't trying to outdrink me. She just smiled again. Not flirty, not polite. Just sharp. The conversation jumped all over the place. She asked about my exes, like really specific questions. How long the last one lasted, who broke it off, what I learned from it. It felt like an interview, but not in a bad way. I answered because I was trying to match her energy. She'd nod or say figures after certain things, then dive into her own stuff. She told me she was fresh out of something messy. Said it still smelled like him when she opened certain drawers. I remember laughing awkwardly and asking if it had ended recently. She tilted her head and said, technically, yeah. That word, technically, stuck in my throat, but she was already on to something else. Talking about revenge songs, how she liked the drama of old school breakups. I didn't know what to do with that, so I just smiled and asked if she wanted another drink. She said yes, then asked if I had a toothbrush at my place. I paused. Thought she was joking. She wasn't. Before I could figure out what to say, it happened. This guy, tall, thick beard, heavy boots, came bursting through the front door like he was kicked in by a movie scene. Heads turned. The bartender froze mid-pour. He scanned the bar once and locked eyes on us like a heat-seeking missile. His chest was rising fast like he'd run to get there. She didn't move, didn't even flinch. He stormed over, and I had about 2 seconds to decide whether I was about to get swung on or shouted at. Both happened, kind of. He slammed his hand down on the table and just stared at her. Not at me. Her. She looked up, calm as ever, and said nothing. That's when he looked at me and asked if I knew who she was. Said her full name first, and last like a teacher calling roll. I blinked. She was still staring at him like he was a fly on a window. Then he said, "That's my wife." It was like every sound in the room got sucked into a vacuum. I felt my body lean back just instinct. Not because I believed it right away, but because of the way he said it. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't even angry in the way you'd expect. He was broken, like this wasn't his first time chasing her down. He looked at her again and said she'd taken his truck, his card, and hadn't answered a call in 3 days. She took a sip of her drink. Didn't deny it. Just said, "You deserve it." Then she turned to me and smiled like we were right back in the conversation, like he wasn't even standing there. She said something like, "Sorry for the interruption. This is just part of the healing process." I wanted to laugh, or run, or vanish, but I just sat there staring at both of them like I was trapped in the scene I didn't audition for. He looked at me and asked if I was sleeping with her. I said no, then corrected myself and said we were just on a first date. He didn't seem to care either way. She finally stood up, grabbed her coat, tossed some cash on the table like she was closing out a casual happy hour. And then, in this part I'll never forget, she leaned over and kissed me on the cheek, then said, "Thanks for being part of the show." She walked out, past him like nothing happened. He followed a few steps behind, then stopped at the door and just stood there for a few seconds before walking out after her. The bartender came over and asked if I was okay. I just nodded and asked for the tab. I didn't finish my drink. I didn't even touch it, just paid and left. I checked the app when I got home. Her profile was still there for a minute, then gone, like she deleted it, or maybe just blocked me. I've been on some awkward dates before. Bad conversations, weird silences, someone crying over an ex, but nothing like that. I wasn't even part of the story. I was just a prop, a name she could drop later, proof that she still had it, that she could hurt him back. And yeah, I hope they both got whatever they wanted out of it. But I'm switching to coffee dates now. So I met this guy on Hinge, obviously. His name was Jonah, and his profile was almost suspiciously clean. No blurry group photos where you have to squint and guess which one he is. No all caps 6-own BKUs appear until I that he make tears. No shirtless mirror selfie at the gym with a motivational quote about discipline. Just Jonah, standing in decent lighting, wearing glasses, smiling in a way that felt stiff, like he practiced in front of a mirror and said, "Yes, this one communicates competence." He had an entire paragraph in his bio about loving spreadsheets, an actual ode to Excel. I assumed it was a joke, a deadpan, self-aware attempt at quirkiness. Nobody loves spreadsheets enough to write about them unironically, right? Wrong. We agreed to meet at a bar near the station, neutral territory. Easy to escape if needed. He picked the place. Warm lighting, too many stools, cocktails with dumb names like Tequila Mockingbird. I got there first and ordered a margarita because you can't go wrong with salt and tequila. Jonah arrived 4 minutes early, wearing a navy button-up and carrying a messenger bag. That should have been my first warning. Who brings a bag to a bar? He sat down, smoothed his sleeves with both palms like he was about to give a presentation, and ordered water. Not a gin and tonic, not a beer, not even a soda. Water. He said he didn't like how alcohol influences decisions. I was halfway through my margarita by then and just smiled like, okay, monk vibes, fine. But some part of my brain started going alert, alert, alert. Then he pulled out a notebook, a tiny black moleskin. He opened it carefully, flipped to a bookmarked page, and finally looked me in the eyes with unsettling steadiness. "Okay," he said. "Let's begin." "Begin what?" I laughed because what else do you do? He didn't laugh. He said he liked to be efficient with his time. That dating apps were full of dead leads, and he preferred to streamline things, like an interview. I thought he was being ironic, a bit, a performance. He wasn't. Out came the folder, a real folder. It had color-coded tabs, blue, yellow, red. He flipped open the first one and slid a paper across the bar, a printed document. It was his dating goals formatted exactly like a business plan. Bullet points, numbered objectives, even a mission statement. That's when he started asking me questions. Not the cute get-to-know-you kind, but the kind of questions that feel like they belong in a loan application. What's your salary? Do you rent or own? How much debt do you currently carry? Would you be open to signing a prenup? Would you be willing to relocate if things got serious? Do you want kids? If yes, how many? If no, would you change your mind for the right person? I sat there, margarita hovering near my face, blinking like someone had just cast a free spell on me. I told him gently that this felt a little intense. He nodded gravely. It weeds out the unserious, he said. Then he asked if I had any questions for him. I asked about the red tab. Oh, he said, pulling it out. That's my deal breakers list. It was laminated, a laminated sheet of deal breakers. Double-sided. Tiny font. He watched me read it, expression serene like a teacher waiting for a student to finish an exam. Some of the items were reasonable. No smokers, no liars, no cheaters. Fine. But then I saw gems like, doesn't believe in compound interest, hates spreadsheets, has loud roommates, owns too many plants, uses lol more than once per sentence, doesn't have a Roth IRA, thinks astrology matters, has dated more than 5 people in the last 5 years, believes therapy is life-changing. He asked if any of those applied to me. I lied and said no. Then he flipped to the yellow tab, lifestyle compatibility. He asked if I woke up early, if I liked cooking, what time I usually eat dinner, how many hours I spent on social media. He even asked how many steps I averaged per day. I started looking around the bar for hidden cameras. Surely this was a prank. Surely, at any second, someone was going to leap out and yell, "You've been YouTubed." But no, Jonah was dead serious. He had a pen in hand and was literally ticking boxes as I spoke. And the worst part, he was calm. Absolutely calm. Not nervous, not apologetic. Pure CEO energy, like this was just another boardroom meeting. I got the distinct feeling he'd done this before, many times, and he was still waiting for someone to pass. Finally, I cut him off. Look, this feels weird. I'm not comfortable being interviewed like a job applicant. He tilted his head bird-like, as if I just said something incomprehensible. This is just streamlining the process, he said. People waste so much time on small talk and dates that go nowhere. This is better. I told him I was going to the bathroom. I didn't. I walked straight out the door. Coat still on the back of the chair, margarita half finished. Outside, I started laughing. The kind of laugh that bursts out in jagged pieces and makes strangers cross the street to avoid you. My phone buzzed. A message from Jonah. Thank you for your time. I'll be moving forward with other candidates. I blocked his number, unmatched him. And yet, I swear to this day, Jonah genuinely believed he rejected me. Like I failed the interview. And maybe in his world I did. I swear I thought it was going well until she handed me the phone and told me to say hi to her kids. We met on Bumble, and she was cute, funny too. Her profile said she loved horror movies, red wine, and genuine people only, which didn't tell me much, but it felt safe. We texted for a bit, nothing crazy, just voice notes and dumb memes, and she asked to meet up quicker than I expected. I like that. No one wants to spend 2 weeks talking about breakfast just to get ghosted. We agreed on this coffee place with dim lighting and bookshelves that nobody reads. It was quiet, but not awkward quiet. I got there a few minutes early, and she walked in wearing this oversized hoodie and leggings, no makeup, hair in a messy bun. I remember thinking she looked better than her pictures. She had this laid-back vibe like she didn't care what anyone thought, but not in a mean way, just unbothered. She sat down across from me, already sipping from a drink she'd brought in from somewhere else, which was kind of weird, but not the worst thing. I asked if she wanted to order anything, and she said she doesn't like spending money on overpriced milk. I laughed even though I didn't really get it. The convo started off chill. She talked a lot, but I didn't mind. She was funny in a blunt way. No filters. Told me straight up that she hated small talk and people who try to be mysterious on dates. I told her she could ask me whatever she wanted, and she smiled and said good. Then she started getting a little intense. Not in a scary way at first, just rapid-fire questions. How long was my last relationship? Why did it end? Did I want kids someday? How soon did I want something serious? What kind of car did I drive? Do I rent her own? Would I date someone who would have complicated schedule? I was halfway through answering when she pulled her phone out and started typing like she was texting someone. I thought maybe she was checking in with a friend or something. Then she suddenly flipped the phone around and said, "Okay, I'm gonna let them say hi." I didn't know what she meant until I saw three faces pop up on her screen. Two girls and a boy, all under 10. They were in what looked like a living room, bouncing around, yelling, waving. One of them had food all over their face. I froze. I had no idea what was happening. She smiled and handed me the phone and said, "Say hi to your new dad." Dead serious, not laughing, not even joking in a sarcastic tone, like she meant it. I blinked, held the phone in the air like it was buzzing. The kids kept shouting hi and waving. One of them called her mom. The other one asked where I lived. I looked at her like, what is going on right now? She whispered, "Just say hi," like it was the most normal thing in the world. Like I was already part of their life, like this wasn't a first date in a coffee shop with someone I met 4 days ago. I said a quiet hi and handed the phone back. She took it, smiled at the screen, and said, "He's cute, right?" Then hung up before they could answer. I thought maybe she was testing me, like some wild loyalty test. But no, she started talking about them. Their names, their school, their favorite meals. She told me her oldest loved drawing, her middle kid wanted to be a vet, and the youngest had anger issues, but it's manageable if he likes you. I sat there trying to figure out if I was being pranked. She leaned in and said, "They'd never met anyone before. You're the first." The first. I nodded like I understood, like I got it, but inside I was trying to work out how to escape without making it weird. I asked her how long she'd been single, and she gave me this long-winded story about her ex being emotionally allergic to commitment, and how he thought being a dad meant dropping in every 3 months with candy and disappearing again. Then she grabbed my hand. Not like a date handhold. More like she was sealing a deal. Her grip was strong. I think I said something like, "I need to use the bathroom," and she let go, still smiling. I got up, walked to the hallway, and stood there staring at the bathroom sign. I wasn't going in. I just needed distance. I texted my friend, "Cal me now," and stood by the exit pretending I was checking my phone. She came up behind me a few minutes later and asked if I was okay. Said I looked pale. I said my friend just called and had a car issue, that I had to go help. She asked if I wanted to reschedule. I said, definitely, because I didn't know how else to end it. Then she hugged me. Tight, like I just saved her life. She said, "Don't worry, I know it's a lot," and added, "We'll figure it out." I got in my Uber and didn't look back. Blocked her number. Blocked her on the app. Deleted the screenshots I took of her profile. Every now and then I still wonder what would have happened if I'd stayed 5 more minutes, or if I'd answered the kids with a full sentence. All I know is I don't do surprise FaceTimes anymore. I swear all I said was that his haircut looked very military. That was it. That was the whole comment. This was about 6 months ago, when I was just starting to tip back into dating after a long, weird situationship ended. You know the kind. Not quite a relationship, but it still wrecks you for months afterward. We never used labels, but somehow we had fights, anniversaries of sorts, and the kind of late night calls that make you feel like you're in too deep. When it ended, I promised my best friend I'd shake things up. No more overthinking profiles. No more scrolling like I was conducting FBI level background checks. Just say yes, go on dates, see what happens. So when Marcus matched with me, I didn't do the usual deep dive. His profile was basic. A couple of mirror selfies, one obligatory gym shot, and a picture with his dog that looked like it had been taken on an iPhone 6. His prompts were forgettable, but his messages were fine. Punctuation, actual words, no, "Hey, what are you doing at midnight?" That alone put him above average. He asked me out after just 2 days of chatting. Said he wanted to just vibe and get to know each other properly. Innocent enough. We agreed to meet at one of those outdoor food markets downtown. The kind with fairy lights strung everywhere, indie bands playing acoustic covers, and way too many food options. You walked 10 feet and you passed Ethiopian sambusas, Korean corn dogs, and artisanal ice cream made from oat milk and tears. He showed up in a black t-shirt that looked like it hadn't been washed properly. You know when clothes have that slight detergent coat, and also a faint musk. That his jeans had too many zippers, like he raided a Hot Topic clearance bin. He was shorter than I expected, but whatever. I'm not hung up on height. The thing that really caught my attention was the haircut. It was fresh, too fresh. A buzz fade so sharp you could have measured it with a ruler. The kind of cut where the barber probably saluted after finishing. Not a hair out of place. And it wasn't just neat. It was intense. Like drill sergeant intense. I wasn't even going to mention it, but he brought it up himself. He leaned toward me, tilted his head like he wanted me to admire it. "You like the cut?" he asked, grinning in a way that was just a little too eager. I smiled. I thought I was being playful. I said, "Yeah, it's really clean. You look like you're about to call at someone for not saluting." It wasn't mean. I even laughed when I said it. It was obviously a joke. He didn't laugh. At first, I thought maybe he just didn't get it. Some people don't. Maybe he was one of those ultra-serious types who never jokes unless it's about Bitcoin. So I tried to keep the energy moving. I pointed toward the taco stall, then the bowable and stand. Asked what you wanted to try. He didn't answer. He was staring at the table, jaw tight. I thought he was just deciding, so I waited. Then, out of nowhere, he stood up. Before I could even process it, he flipped the entire table. Not a bump. Not a clumsy elbow. A full deliberate flip. Plastic cups went flying. My tray of fries hit the ground. The couple next to us scrambled back. People gasped. Everyone turned. And Marcus, date Marcus, not stranger on the subway Marcus, stood there with his fists clenched, face flushed, yelling that he would not be disrespected. I froze. My brain couldn't compute what was happening. 1 second I was teasing about a haircut. The next second I was living in an episode of Cops. He started pacing in tight little circles beside the table, muttering words under his breath. I caught fragments. Humiliation. Boundaries. Lack of respect. I honestly thought someone else would step in, but everyone was just staring. The guy from the bow stand came over cautiously, asking if everything was okay. Another staff member picked the table up, shaking his head. I just stood there, completely still. Bag in the chair, phone untouched. It was like my body refused to move until my brain rebooted. Then he snapped his head toward me. His eyes were wild. "You're exactly like the rest of them," he spat. No context. No explanation. Just rage wrapped in self-pity. And then he stormed off. Toward the parking lot. I didn't follow. I didn't say a word. I just blinked, slowly picked up my phone, grabbed my sad paper cup of soda off the ground, and walked to the nearest bench like a stunned NPC in a video game. I sat there, existing, breathing, watching other people cautiously go back to their bao buns like nothing had happened. A woman in her 40s walked over and asked gently if I was okay. I nodded, though I wasn't sure if it was true. My heart was hammering. My brain kept replaying the scene like a glitching video, the haircut, the joke, the crash of cups, the yelling. Had I said something worse than I thought? Had I insulted him in some way I didn't realize? But no. It was literally just a dumb line about his haircut. A lie I would have used on a friend. Later that night, my phone buzzed. A long message from Marcus. He wrote that he didn't appreciate being made fun of, especially in public. That he had trauma around disrespect, and that I lacked the emotional maturity he expected in a partner. He ended by saying I had failed a basic compatibility test. I stared at the message, then blocked his number. My friend, when I told her the story, put her hands on my shoulders and made me promise. Coffee dates only. Daytime, public, easy exits, plenty of witnesses, and no comments about haircuts. Not even if it looks like someone shaved it with a ruler, because apparently that's a deal breaker. I've never really been that guy who gets paranoid over who pays on a date. I don't mind covering the bill, especially if the vibe's good. I was raised on that be generous stuff. Open the door, pick up the check, all that. But there's a difference between being polite and being played, and I didn't realize I was getting played until way after this one. Her name was Lila. She messaged me first on Hinge, which already felt rare. Her profile had this soft, dreamy aesthetic. Selfies with sparkles, sunsets, iced coffee held just right. She looked like she knew exactly how to use lighting. She had this one photo at a fancy rooftop bar with a martini glass in her hand, and this half smirk like she was used to being treated well. We didn't talk for long. 3 days maybe. She said she wasn't into endless texting, and honestly, neither was I. She suggested dinner, not drinks. Some were grown, her words, not mine. I should have been suspicious when she picked the place. This sleek French spot downtown that I'd never even heard of. I looked it up, and the first thing I saw was a menu where the starters were pricier than my weekly grocery bill. I thought about suggesting something more chill, but I didn't want to seem cheap. So I said yeah. I showed up first. She arrived fashionably late, like exactly 12 minutes after the reservation time, in a long black coat and heels that made a sound with every step. She looked good, not overdressed, just expensive. Like everything she was wearing had a silent logo stitched on the inside. She sat down, smiled like she'd done this 100 times, and started scanning the menu like she already knew it by heart. Before we even talked about what we liked, she flagged down the waiter and ordered a glass of wine that cost more than the bottle I had brought to my sister's birthday. I tried to match her energy, ordered something mid-tired. She kept talking, not really listening, just moving from one topic to the next like she was running down a checklist. Where I worked, how long I'd been single, if I lived alone, what car I drove, if I had roommates. It didn't feel flirty, it felt tactical. Then came the ordering. She didn't even hesitate. Steak, rare with a side of truffle potatoes, and some caviar toast to start. I blinked. The only caviar I knew came in jokes about rich people. I went for something basic. Pasta. Couldn't pronounce the name, but it had mushrooms, so whatever. I asked if she wanted to split anything. She laughed. Said she had an appetite tonight. Then asked if I liked oysters. I said I'd never tried them. She ordered half a dozen. For herself. It was around the time dessert menus came out that she patted her coat and did the whole "oh no" face. Looked in her bag, looked again. Then said she must have left her wallet in her other jacket. I didn't even say anything. Just nodded and said it was fine. I'd already assumed I was covering everything anyway. She smiled, said she'd definitely get it next time, and ordered the creme brulee without missing a beat. I paid. The bill hurt. But I didn't say anything. I even walked her to the rideshare zone after and waited till she got in the car. She gave me a little wait as it pulled off. I stood there like an idiot, wondering what the hell just happened. I didn't hear from her the next day, or the one after. I texted once, something casual like, "Hey, good time the other night." No reply. I let it go, just chalked it up as a dead-end date. Then a week later, I was at a friend's birthday thing, a guy I knew from uni. Someone brought up bad dates, and I mentioned the dinner. Before I could even finish, this girl across the table, someone's cousin, I think, asked, "Wait, was her name Lila?" I froze. She nodded like she already knew. Said she had a friend who went through the exact same thing. Same girl, same restaurant, same missing wallet. Different guy. Then another guy at the table joined in. He'd been taken to a sushi place. She ordered the omakase set, like the one with the chef's special menu, and coasted after. Turns out she'd been doing it for months. Different restaurants. Always upscale. Never the same one twice with the same guy. The routine was always the same. Flashy intro, fast meetup, big order, missing wallet, vanish. She even had an Instagram account private with some username that didn't even sound like her real name. Someone pulled it up. The bio was "I only eat well." I wish I was kidding. The highlight bubbles were just wine glasses and steak. Tagged photos full of blurry date night aesthetics. Never any of the guys. At that point, I didn't even feel mad. I felt weird. Like I'd been part of a show I didn't audition for. A supporting role in someone's carefully curated scam. And the worst part, she probably didn't even remember my name. I checked the app later that night. She unmatched me. Probably did it before dessert even hit the table. Haven't been on another dinner date since. I know I messed up by going back to his place. I already know. I can feel people judging me every time I tell this story. But in the moment, it felt fine. I didn't think that was gonna happen. He didn't seem like the kind of guy who kept literal trophies from his exes. We met through mutuals, not an app for once, at a friend birthday thing. He was tall, quiet, but smooth, and had that clean hoodie, nice shoes vibe like he cared, but didn't try too hard. I caught him looking at me across the bonfire, and by the end of the night, we were sharing a bag of Doritos like we'd known each other forever. We texted for a week after that. No weird icks, no red flags. He sent good morning texts, but not every day, used way too many commas, and always added a space before his question marks, like wanna hang, which was kind of annoying, but whatever. He asked if I wanted to come over instead of doing a typical loud date, said he'd cook. Something about that felt cute, like low effort in a good way. Chill, I said yes. Told my best friend where I was going. Shared location. You know, the usual safety stuff. His apartment was weirdly clean. Like, not just tidy. Sterile, spotless. No dust and no shoes by the door, no loose cables or bags of laundry hiding in the corner. Everything looked like a showroom. The living room was all gray and black, and it smelled like mint and something chemical. There was a candle burning that didn't match the vibe. Too sweet, like vanilla cake or something. He made pasta. I watched from the counter while he cooked, sipping wine and pretending not to be impressed. I kept trying to get a sense of him. Its walls had no photos, no posters, just one abstract print. Black lines on a white canvas. Looked like something you'd buy because you saw it in a showroom and didn't want to leave the wall blank. Dinner was decent. Conversation was smooth. He kept the music on low, that lo-fi stuff that sounds like it's playing from a broken radio underwater. He had good taste. Didn't overshare. Didn't brag. Made jokes that didn't feel like auditions for a podcast. It was nice. Then I saw the shelf. It was behind a glass door, off to the side of the hallway leading to his bedroom. Not really hidden, but placed like an art piece. The lighting hit it just right. At first, I thought it was random clutter. Little bottles, maybe makeup, a few random trinkets. But when I got closer, it wasn't clutter. It was organized. Top shelf had what looked like ID cards. Not fake ones. Actual IDs. Stacked. Some in little clear sleeves like collector cards. Below that, earrings. All different styles. One pair still put together, most just singles. Some looked worn, some looked brand new. Tiny hoops, a dangly one with a star, one that had a little fake pearl. Next row, lipstick tubes. Dozens, neatly lined up. Some with the lids off, others twisted halfway up like they'd been used that morning. And below that, folded notes, like handwritten stuff. Some had stickers on them, some just plain paper. I couldn't read them from the angle I was at, but I saw little hearts on a few. One was in crayon. I stood there staring at it for too long. He walked up behind me at some point and just stood there. Didn't say anything at first. When I turned to ask what all that was, he didn't flinch. He said, "Oh, just souvenirs from my past relationships." Like he was talking about fridge magnets. No sarcasm. No, just kidding. He meant it. I laughed. Not because I thought it was funny. I just didn't know what else to do. I asked if he was serious. He nodded, said, "People throw things away too fast these days." And he asked if I wanted to see the rest of the apartment. I said I had to go to the bathroom. I didn't. I walked to the front door and opened it before he could say anything else. I didn't run. I didn't scream. I just walked out like I was late for something, like I'd left my oven on at home. He didn't follow me. Didn't say a word, just watched. When I got to the street, I pulled my phone out and deleted his number. I texted my friend, "Call me now," and waited for the buzz like it was an oxygen mask. Later that night, I stalked his socials. Not much came up. Barely any photos. The ones that were there. All solo shots. No tags, no comments. A few likes from people with usernames like WellnessGlow1990 and Sompath Energy. I didn't sleep. A few days later, I told the friend who introduced us. She went pale. Said he used to date someone she kind of knew. A girl who moved away suddenly. Blocked everyone, never said why. I don't know what that shelf meant. Maybe he really did keep those things from exes. Maybe they left them and never came back to get them. Maybe it was nothing. Or maybe it was something. But I do know I didn't imagine it. That shelf was real. And so were the names on those IDs. I always assumed the creepiest part of a first date would be some guy oversharing about his ex or trying to split the bill after ordering 6 whiskeys. I never thought it'd be someone casually saying my mother's maiden name like it was just another bit of small talk. His name was Damon. He had the kind of profile that looked effortless. Gym pick, dog pick, passport stamp kind of vibe. He wasn't my usual type, but he messaged first and didn't open with anything gross, so I replied. He had a charm to his texts, dry humor, good grammar, never double texted. We had a decent back and forth for a few days, and when he asked if I wanted to grab dinner somewhere with low lights and real forks, I said sure. We went to this Italian place downtown. Not cheap, but not too fancy either. The kind of spot with actual cloth napkins and olive oil on the table before you even ask. He was already seated when I arrived, sipping water and scrolling through his phone. He stood up when I walked over, polite. Smiled like he'd been waiting for this for a while. At first, everything seemed fine. He looked like his photos, tall, clean-cut, one of those guys who probably has perfect teeth because his parents cared early. His shirt was tucked in just slightly, and his voice was calm. Everything about him was muted, in control. He didn't fidget, didn't check his phone again, didn't even look around much. Just stared at me while I talked like I was saying something important even when I wasn't. We chatted about work, music, bad dates. I told a story about a guy who brought his mom on our second date and he laughed. Not too hard, but like he appreciated the story. He asked good questions, but nothing too deep. It all felt smooth like a scripted play. Then, right before dessert, things shifted. We were halfway through sharing this fancy ravioli dish, and I mentioned something about how annoying it is to commute from my area. That's when he said it. Not a creepy voice. Not in a threatening way. Just soft and casual. Yeah, it must stop driving from 28 Elston Road. That's a long stretch with all those red lights. My fork paused halfway to my mouth. I didn't even blink at first. I thought maybe I misheard him. Maybe he said Elston, like the street in general, not my address. But he followed it up by saying the cafe next to my building had great scones, the kind with lemon glaze, and that it was nice how quiet your hallway is after 8 p.m. My chest felt tight, but I smiled like I was still part of the conversation. Tried to play it off, asked if he'd been to that part of town. He looked confused, almost offended, and said, No, I haven't been near your place. I just like to know these things in advance. In advance, like I was an appointment. He kept going. Told me I work at the law firm near the train station, the one with the green awning. He named it. Spelled it. Then casually mentioned my boss's name and said they had a solid track record. I felt like my bones were buzzing, like I just drank 5 energy drinks and was crashing at the same time. I asked how he knew all that. My voice cracked a bit. I heard it. He took another sip of water and said, You'd be surprised what's publicly available if you know how to look. Then he said my mom's maiden name. Not even in a sentence. Just said it, like it was a trivia answer. Then smiled and added, I guessed your security questions, by the way. You should probably change them. I remember staring at the folds of the napkin in my lap, thinking about how my hands were shaking but trying to keep still. I don't know why I didn't run right then. I think I was trying to figure out if this was a prank. Like maybe I was on some twisted YouTube channel, hidden camera, something. But he kept eating. Like this was all normal. Like he hadn't just listed my personal data out loud like he was reading a receipt. I excused myself to the bathroom. I didn't go to the bathroom. I walked past it, straight out the back door, through the kitchen hallway, where a waiter looked at me like I'd gotten lost. I pushed open the emergency exit and ran around the block before calling an Uber from a random corner with no lights. I didn't even care about the bill. I just needed to get away. The second I got home, I locked everything. Door, windows. I unplugged my Alexa, changed every password I could think of, canceled my cards, called my friend and told her everything while pacing in socks. The next morning I checked the app. His profile was gone. Not unmatched, gone. Like he never existed. I filed a report, not that it did anything. Told the app, told the police. They said unless he did something physical, it wasn't a crime. Just concerning behavior. That was the phrase. Like I caught a cold instead of a psycho. To this day, I have no idea how far he dug. I don't know if he actually hacked my accounts or just found stuff online. All I know is that he knew things no stranger should know. And he smiled through all of it like he was proud. I swear the date was totally normal until she weaponized her heel. Her name was Zoe. We matched on Hinge, the usual origin story. Her profile was one of those perfectly mid-level ones, not trying too hard, not bare bones either. A few selfies in decent lighting, one with a dog, captioned "not mine," which somehow made it more endearing, and a voice note where she said she liked guys who ask weird questions. That line gave me pause. What did she mean by weird? Aliens. Existential philosophy. Which condiment you'd eliminate from Earth forever? But I liked her tone. Kinda sarcastic, kinda sweet. Texting her was easy. She was fast with replies, never used lol, and ended almost every sentence with a period. It gave everything a serious weight, even when she was joking. I couldn't always tell if she was being playful or deadly sincere, which made it more interesting. She picked the spot for dinner, a trendy little fusion place that was obviously designed for Instagram. Fake plants crawling up the walls. Drinks with glowing ice cubes that lit up your face like you'd just been exposed to uranium. Too many neon signs with phrases like, but first, cocktails in cursive. It wasn't my vibe, but I wasn't going to argue. I showed up 5 minutes early. She showed up 5 minutes late, walking like she owned the sidewalk. Black heels, ripped jeans, oversized sweater that looked soft enough to nap in. She gave me a quick smile, the kind that felt like she was already in on a joke I hadn't heard yet. And honestly, the first half of the night was solid. More than solid. She was funny, quick with comebacks, and told stories using her whole body. Big gestures, animated expressions, the works. She roasted the waiter for mispronouncing yuzu, but somehow managed to make it charming instead of cruel. She laughed hard, the kind of laugh that turns heads at nearby tables. It didn't feel like a performance, just real. We talked about music, about food, about how dating apps make everyone feel like a contestant on a game show they never signed up for. She said she once ghosted a guy because he chewed gum too loudly. I admitted I had a vendetta against people who clap when planes land. It was easy, effortless. After dinner, I offered to walk her to her car. She shook her head. Said she didn't drive. Said she liked to people watch on foot. I didn't know what that meant, but I didn't press. I told her I'd walk her part of the way, then call her a ride after I got to mine. She nodded, adjusted her sweater, and we set off through the dimly lit parking lot. We were maybe 30 feet from my car when she stopped, dead still. Her eyes narrowed at something in the distance. I followed her gaze and saw a guy in a black hoodie leaning against a red hatchback, scrolling on his phone. Just a random dude as far as I could tell. The kind of person you'd never even notice twice in a parking lot. That's my ex, she said. Her tone was flat, matter of fact. No trimmer, no drama. Just like she'd pointed out the weather. I immediately offered the normal options. Turn around, take the long way, avoid the scene. Easy solutions, but she didn't answer. She just kept staring. 3 full seconds of silence, her body perfectly still except for the subtle rise and fall of her chest. Then she took a deep breath. And without a single word of warning, she slipped off one of her heels. I barely had time to register what was happening before she was moving. Not walking, not stomping, charging. Her bare foot slapped against the pavement as she sprinted toward the red hatchback, the other heel clutched in her hand like a weapon. And then, right as she reached the car, she let out a sharp, guttural yell, too low for me to make out the words, and brought the heel down on the windshield. The sound was horrifying. A sharp crack, followed by a spider web of glass blooming across the surface. She hit it again. And again. Each strike made a sickening thunk, followed by the delicate rain of fractured glass dusting the hood. And she was laughing. Not in a maniacal, unhinged way. In a casual, this is so satisfying way. Like she was popping bubble wrap. Like this was just a logical next step in her evening plans. 3, 4, 5 hits. The windshield looked like it had been punched by a superhero. The guy finally looked up from his phone. He didn't even look shocked. Just annoyed. Like this wasn't the first time his car had suffered Zoe's wrath. He shouted something I couldn't make out. She ignored him completely, gave the glass one final whack, and then tossed a shoe onto the hood like she'd just dropped the mic at the end of a performance. Then she turned and walked back to me. Calm, smiling, barefoot. Sorry, she said, brushing tiny shards off her hands. Had to get that out of my system. Like she'd sneezed too loud. Like it was mildly embarrassing, but no big deal. I stared at her, keys dangling in my hand, unable to form words. She asked if I still wanted to hang out. Said there was a bar nearby she really liked. Asked it like nothing unusual had happened, like smashing a windshield with footwear was part of her normal date night routine. I lied. Said I was tired. Said I had to be up early. Said I left something on at home. Any excuse I could think of all at once. I called her a ride, handed her the other shoe, and practically sprinted to my own car. Later that night, curiosity got the best of me. I looked her up. And here's the kicker. She seemed normal online, completely painfully normal. Instagram full of matcha lattes, sunset photos, inspirational quotes. Selfies at brunch with captions like living, laughing, loving. Cute dog she doesn't own. No windshield smashing energy whatsoever. Her last caption, learning to let go. Guess she forgot that part. You know when a date feels off, but you can't explain why. Not because they said anything wrong, but because something underneath it all just doesn't match the surface. That's what this was. Except by the end, I wasn't wondering if something was off. I knew exactly what it was. Her name was Lainey. She messaged first. Said she liked the way I looked focused but soft in my profile pic, which already felt like a weird compliment, but I just rolled with it. Her bio said she worked in digital archiving or something equally vague and nerdy. I figured maybe she scanned old books or organized data for museums. Seemed smart. We talked for like 3 days. Her replies were always quick, always sharp. She had this calm way of typing, like she never needed emojis to get her point across. I liked that. It felt different. So I suggested we grab a drink. She agreed instantly, no hesitation, like she'd already blocked off the time. We met at this little cocktail bar off a quiet street, one of those moody places where the menus are on clipboards, and there's a candle flickering on every table like it's required by law. I was early, she was earlier. She was already sitting when I walked in, sipping water and scrolling on her phone like she wasn't waiting for anyone. She looked better in person. Dark sweater, sharp jawline, very still posture. No fidgeting, no over-smiling, just steady eyes that made you feel like she was listening too hard. We did the whole how was your day routine, but it was fast, like she just needed to get through the formalities. I started to ask her how long she'd lived in the area, and she said, without missing a beat, "A while. I've known you longer, though." I tilted my head, confused. She laughed, not like it was a joke, more like she was amused I didn't already know. Then she said, super casually, "I've been watching you jog for a few weeks. You always take that left by the old corner store. Around 6:45 a.m., right?" Everything in me paused. I thought maybe she meant she saw me once, like she lived nearby or something. But no, she started describing my route. In detail. Said I had a lazy bounce in my left step, and that I needed better shoes because I was overcompensating in my knees. Said it like she was my coach or something. I tried to play it cool, asked if she lived near there. She shook her head. Then she said, "I don't live there. I just like the way your back looks when you run." I laughed, out of nerves, but she didn't laugh back. That's when it clicked. She wasn't being flirty. She was being serious. I looked down at my drink, not even sure what to say. She smiled again, leaned in a little, and said she had something funny to show me. I thought it was gonna be a meme or something. Maybe an old photo, maybe a screenshot of some Tinder disaster. Instead, she opened her photo app, scrolled for maybe 2 seconds, turned the phone around. The first picture was of me, sleeping, through my window. It was my room. I recognized the way my sheets get crumpled at the corner of the bed. The ugly lamp I keep meaning to replace, my shoulder just barely poking out from under the blanket. She swiped. Another photo. Same angle. Slightly darker. My head turned the other way. She swiped again. One where I had my hand over my face, probably mid-roll. The timestamp said 3:12 a.m. I couldn't breathe. I asked her how she got those. My voice cracked, and I hated that she heard it. She just looked at me like I was the one acting weird. Said she was just curious. That she'd noticed my windows didn't have proper blinds. That I looked peaceful in my sleep. I didn't even know how to respond. I just stared at the phone still facing me on the table, waiting for her to say she was kidding. But she never did. Then she said something that chilled me even more. Don't worry, I didn't take any inside your house. That would be crossing the line. That would be crossing the line. Not the fact that she'd followed me. Not the photos. Not memorizing my morning routine. Just inside being the line. She said she'd only wanted to see if I was as calm up close as I looked from afar. I told her I didn't feel well, that I needed to step outside for air. She said, "That's okay." I figured you'd panic. Like she expected it. I left. Fast, didn't look back. I got around the corner and texted my friend, dropped a pin, asked him to come get me and wait with me until my Uber showed up. I didn't feel safe going home alone. Didn't know if she'd followed me there before. Didn't know if she already knew where I lived. Later that night, I checked all my windows. Twice. Then I bought blackout curtains online and paid extra for next day delivery. I unmatched her. The next day, her profile was gone. Not just unmatched, gone. Like she was never on the app to begin with. I still don't know how long she'd been watching me, or what else she had on her phone, or if she's still watching now. But I sleep with my curtains closed, and I don't run that route anymore. I still don't know what the worst part was. The blood on the floor, the fact that he was shirtless, or the way he screamed at me to cheer like I was at some high school football game. His name was Mason. We met on Bumble. He messaged first and called me Sunshine, which in hindsight should have been the first red flag. Not cute, not charming, just off. But at the time, I thought maybe it was his attempt at being playful. His profile was exactly what you'd expect from a guy like that, John Picks, flexing in bad lighting, one selfie with a dirt bike, and a bio that read, "Live intense, love loyal," which sounds less like a dating profile and more like the tagline for a bad energy drink. I wasn't expecting much. Just a drink. Maybe a weird story. But he seemed normal enough over text. A little too into grin set talk. Discipline, hustle, all that Andrew Tate adjacent vocabulary. But I chalked it up to gin bro leakage. He offered to pick me up. I should have said no. I usually do say no. But I was tired of always being cautious, always screening every detail. So I said yes. He pulled up in this loud matte black car that rattled like it was being held together with duct tape and ego. The kind of car that announces itself a full block away. When I slid into the passenger seat, he barely said hi, just gave me a quick grin and told me he had a better plan than boring drinks. Said he had something real to show me, that I was lucky he trusted me enough to bring me. That phrasing, trusted me enough, made my skin prickle when I didn't want to seem scared. I just nodded and fastened the seatbelt that definitely hadn't been checked by any professional in years. We drove out of the city. Streetlights got sparse. The buildings shifted from polished condos to warehouses, then to full-on industrial wasteland. He parked next to a busted chain-link fence, killed the engine, and grinned. "Follow me," he said. I asked what this was. "You'll see," he said. "It's an underground event. Don't worry, it's exclusive." That word, exclusive, sounded ridiculous in that moment, but I followed him anyway. Stupid, I know. I didn't want to look nervous, didn't want to look like the kind of girl who couldn't hang. We walked through an alley that smelled like damp cardboard and old beer, past graffiti-tagged dumpsters, then down a crumbling staircase into what looked like a condemned basement. The air hit me immediately, hot, humid, thick with the scent of sweat, blood, and bleach. Music blared from busted speakers. The walls sweated condensation, and there was a crowd, packed, loud, restless. At the center was a makeshift ring. Not ropes. Extension cords tied to metal poles. Scuffed mats duct taped together on the floor. Two guys inside swinging at each other like drunk gorillas. Their punches were messy but brutal. Blood streaked one guy's forehead, spattered against the concrete wall. The crowd roared like a pack of animals. My stomach dropped. I turned to Mason, ready to demand an explanation, and that's when I saw him pulling his shirt off. He peeled it off casually like he was at the beach, handed it to me without asking, as if I was there to be his coat rack. "I'm up next," he said, cracking his knuckles. I laughed. A weak, confused laugh. Surely he was kidding. Surely this wasn't real. He wasn't kidding. He gripped my shoulders, looked me dead in the eyes, and said, "Be loud for me. I need you hiked." Before I could respond, he ducked under the extension cords and stepped into the ring. Someone in the crowd shouted, "Mason the Mauler," like he was a regular. My entire body went cold. The guy he was up against was bigger, older. Tattoos crawling up his arms and neck. The kind of man who looked like he lived on raw meat and monster energy. No gloves, no ref, no rules. The fight started instantly. Fists, knees, chaos. The crowd screamed. Beer cans tipped and spilled. Someone was recording on their phone. I stood there holding Mason's shirt, frozen, my brain looping, "This can't be happening," like a broken record. Every few seconds, Mason glanced over at me. Between swings, between grunts, blood already trickling from his nose, he shouted, "Let's go." And I need that energy, like I was his personal cheerleader. I gave the world's weakest clap. Once, maybe twice. I couldn't even fake enthusiasm. At one point, he got knocked flat on his back, hard. His head bounced against the mat. I gasped, ready to run in, but he sprang up instantly, blood streaking his face. He grinned, pointed at me, and yelled, "That one's for you, baby." I wanted to disappear. The fight dragged on for what felt like an eternity. Probably only 5 minutes, maybe less. In the end, the tattooed guy's knee gave out. He tapped out, grimacing in pain. The crowd erupted. Mason raised his arms like a gladiator basking in glory. Someone shoved a wad of sweaty cash into his hand. He stuffed it into his sock like it was no big deal. He staggered back to me, shirtless, drenched in sweat, face bruised but beaming. He kissed me on the cheek, leaving a smear of blood, and said, "You're my good luck charm." Then, with zero irony, he asked if I wanted to hit Aove. Like we'd just seen a movie. Like this was a normal date night. I told him I felt sick, that I needed to go home. On the way back to the car, he tried to joke. Offered to let me ride on his lap if I didn't like his seatbelt. I didn't laugh. I pulled out my phone, ordered a rideshare, and told him I'd wait outside. He waved me off, said I was being dramatic, said I wasn't ready for real life yet. When my ride pulled up, I didn't look back. That night, I didn't sleep. I just lay in bed staring at the ceiling, heart still racing, Mason's voice echoing in my head. "Be loud for me. I need that energy." Sometimes I wonder if he's still out there, still dragging new girls into basements, tossing his shirt at them like a token, waiting for someone, anyone, to clap louder than I did. You ever get that feeling that you're not really on a date, but just a background character in someone else's night? That's exactly how this felt. Like I wasn't even there to connect, but to play chauffeur in a movie where she was the main character, I was an extra. Her name was Paige. We matched on a Friday afternoon. Her profile gave me that girl next door, but trouble vibe. Soft smiles, casual selfies, one with a coffee mug. She had just enough eyeliner to make you second guess whether she was wholesome or secretly chaotic. One of her prompts said, "I'm the kind of girl who'd rather crash a wedding than go to brunch." That should have been a warning. It wasn't just personality, it was prophecy. But at the time, I thought it was just quirky charm. Fun. A little unpredictable, sure, but harmless. We started chatting. She was sarcastic but quick, the kind of texter who drops voice notes instead of paragraphs, which gave everything an impulsive, chaotic energy. In one, she half laughed and said she had a wild night ahead, but wanted to squeeze in a quick me-up beforehand. That phrasing should have set off alarms, the idea that I was a warm-up act, but I ignored it. I suggested a milkshake spot halfway between us. Easy. Low stakes. She liked the idea immediately. Said she'd Uber there, but asked if I could give her a ride back after, since we were heading the same way anyway. I said sure. She showed up in this mismatch outfit, hoodie and skirt, like she was headed to 2 different occasions at once. Hair down, smile big, nails chipped. She had this wired, restless energy like she'd been running all day and couldn't stop moving. We ordered shakes, slid into a corner booth, and started talking. It was fine, not great. She laughed a lot, but mostly at her own jokes. She complimented me in quick little bursts. "You got good eyes. That's funny, actually." Almost like she was sprinkling breadcrumbs to keep me from noticing how distracted she was. Her phone buzzed constantly, and every time, her eyes flicked down before she shoved it away like it wasn't important. At one point, she laughed way too loud at something she said, then muttered, "Sorry, I've just got so much on my plate right now." I asked what she meant. That's when the call came. Her phone lit up, she answered without hesitation. A few yeahs, one sharp, seriously, and then the longest, most dramatic eye roll I've ever seen. When she hung up, she sighed like the universe had just dumped a weight of the world on her. "That was my mom," she said. "She's stranded in another town. Car trouble. Ugh." Before I could even respond, she leaned closer, put on this pleading face, and asked if I'd mind driving her just real quick. Said it was only 40 minutes away. Said she just needed to check on her and make sure she was safe. I hesitated, obviously, but she doubled down fast, promising I'd be saving her life and that she'd owe me forever. And like an idiot, I said yes. We left the milkshake shop, got into my car, and started driving. She made herself comfortable instantly. Feet on the dash, seat tilted back. She cranked my stereo to max and started singing along badly like this was a road trip with her best friend, not a stranger she met 3 hours ago. At one point, she leaned halfway out the window to yell something dumb at a random pedestrian. I gripped the wheel tighter and asked if she'd texted her mom to say we were on the way. She waved me off. Already did. The drive stretched. Suburbs gave way to highways, highways to neighborhoods I didn't recognize. 40 minutes later, I was in a place that felt wrong. Not rural, not abandoned, just off. Streetlights flickered like dying fireflies. Houses all looked the same, dark and too quiet. Finally, she told me to turn down a narrow street. She pointed at a house glowing with music and laughter, the bass heavy enough to rattle my windows. "Right here," she said. I slowed down, confused. Before I could ask, she popped her seatbelt and threw open the door. "Actually," she said with a grin, "my mom's fine. But my friends are throwing a party and I told them I'd show up. You should come." And just like that, she was out of the car, jogging up the lawn like she owned the place. I sat frozen in the driver's seat, staring at the house, still gripping the steering wheel like it might explain what just happened. People on the porch cheered when they saw her. Someone shouted her name. She waved like a celebrity and disappeared inside. No, thanks for the ride. No, sorry for the lie. Nothing. Just vanished. I sat there another full minute, waiting for the punchline. Waiting for her to come running back, laughing, saying it was a prank. But she didn't. She was gone. So I reversed out slowly, my headlights catching her silhouette in the window as she threw her arms around someone else. Then I drove 40 silent minutes back, no music, no podcast, just me in the hollow realization that I'd been used as a free ride to a house party. The next morning, my phone buzzed. A single text from her at 11 a.m. "Sorry I flaked. You were super cool, though. Hope you found your way back okay, lol." I stared at it for a long time. Then I blocked her. But before I did, I checked her social media. Her story from the night was still up. 10 seconds of her and her friends taking shots in that same house. The camera wobbled as a guy in the background shouted, "Wait, didn't you say you were with your Uber?" Everyone laughed. That was me. I was the Uber. And that's the thing about nights like that. You don't just feel rejected or ignored. You feel erased. Like you were never there as a person at all. Just a convenient seatbelt with gas in the tank. Lesson learned. No more milkshakes. No more just real quick drives. And absolutely no more girls with bios about crashing things. Looking back, I think he asked me to come over way too early into the night. Not even subtle about it. We just finished our second round of drinks, and he leaned across the table like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Want to come back to mine? We can hang out and vibe." He said it so casually, like he'd already written the script for the rest of the evening. I just had to catch up. I hesitated, obviously. I don't usually say yes that fast. But he smiled in a way that made it feel like he was used to people agreeing, like this was routine. He had offered me a ride so I wouldn't have to deal with late trains. So, yeah, I said yes. I know, mistake number one. But in my defense, the red flags didn't start waving until we got inside his place. His name was Nico. We'd matched on Hinge earlier that week. His profile had this quiet, artsy guy vibe. Black and white photos, blurry close-ups, a bookshelf pic. He looked like the kind of person who brewed his own coffee with a scale and probably owned a journal he never let anyone touch. Not hot, but magnetic. There was something in his eyes that made you lean closer. I was bored, restless, in that post-breakup space where even weird attention feels like an upgrade. So when he messaged me with some cryptic line about energetic compatibility, I rolled my eyes and then replied anyway. At the bar, he wasn't creepy, just intense. Talked about frequencies and emotional cycles. Said things like, I'm really sensitive to atmospheres and people caring more than what they show. Half spiritual, half Reddit thread energy. I told myself it was just his way of being different. But when we left the bar and drove to his duplex at the edge of town, the energy shifted. The outside looked normal. Tiny porch, dead plant in a chipped ceramic pot, crooked mailbox with peeling numbers. But the second we stepped inside, I knew something was wrong. The smell hit first, sage mixed with something heavier. Metallic, sharp, almost like blood but not quite. And the air felt off, warmer in patches, cooler in others, like walking through invisible curtains of temperature. I followed him down a narrow hallway lined with floating shelves, each stacked with crystals. Dozens of them. Quartz, amethyst, obsidian, rose, some glowing faintly under a cheap purple UV light. The hallway buzzed faintly like a low electrical hum. Don't mind the energy shift, Nico said without turning around. The house is charged tonight. I laughed because what else do you do when someone says that? He didn't laugh. When we turned the corner into the living room, that's when I saw him. The roommate. Sitting cross-legged dead center of the floor, surrounded by candles. Tall ones, stubby ones, some melted into waxy stalagmites on the hardwood. A bowl of water sat in front of him, something pale floating inside. His eyes were closed. His hands rested on his knees, palms up. And he was chanting. Not humming, not whispering. Chanting. Low, rhythmic syllables I didn't recognize. I froze. Nico just breezed past him, kicked off his shoes, and said, "Oh yeah, that's just Jonah. Don't worry, he's cleansing my aura from past girlfriends." Excuse me? I looked at Jonah, then back at Nico, expecting a grin. A wink, something that told me this was a joke. But Nico was already rummaging through a drawer like this was Tuesday night. I asked carefully if he was serious. Yeah, he said easily. Whenever I start seeing someone new, I have to make sure there's no residual energy left behind. You never know what people leave stuck in your field. Keeps things clean. I didn't know what to do with that. Want some tea, he asked. I said no. Want to sit closer to the ritual. It'll make you feel lighter. I said no again. That's when Jonah opened his eyes. He looked straight at me. Deadpan. Didn't blink. His voice dropped mid-chant as he said, "You have very open energy. You absorb a lot, don't you?" I swallowed, didn't answer. His eyelids fluttered shut. Chanting resumed. Louder. He dipped 2 fingers into the bowl, pulled them out dripping, and flicked water into the air. Droplets hit one of the crystals on a nearby shelf. The second they landed, it hissed. Sizzled, like oil in a pan. I swear I'm not making this up. Nico finally sat down across from me, completely unfazed. He started talking about his emotional body like it was a roommate sitting in the corner. My heart chakra has been holding grief for months, he explained. The last girl left behind this jealousy frequency. Jonah's been helping me release it. I gave him a nervous laugh. Right, totally. He didn't even blink. Then he leaned forward, eyes locked on mine, and asked, "Would you be willing to do a joint cleanse?" Jonah could prep the room. It'd be the perfect way to start our connection. My stomach dropped. I told him I had to go, work early. Dentist appointment. Sick on. Whatever lie came first. I just needed to leave. He looked disappointed but not surprised. Nodded slowly like this was all part of the process. Most people need a couple tries before they align. I grabbed my coat, kept my eyes on the door. Jonah's chant echoed behind me, rising and falling in strange waves. The last thing I saw before the door shut was the bowl of water rippling, as if something had moved inside it. When I got home, I blocked Nico on everything. Deleted the app. Double-checked my windows. Triple-locked the door. But I couldn't stop replaying it in my head. The smell. The candles. Jonah's eyes opening mid-chant like he'd been waiting for me. And then the weirdest part. The next morning, as I reached for my keys, I found a crystal in my coat pocket. Small, smoky quartz, cold against my palm. I don't remember him putting it there. I remember thinking the date was going too smooth. That was my first mistake. Because usually there's something. Some hiccup, some awkward pause, some detail that doesn't quite fit. But with her, there was nothing. She was just sharp, precise, not in a fake trying too hard way. Just in this controlled, measured way that made me feel like I was walking into a conversation she'd already rehearsed. Her name was Sam, short for Samantha, but she said only her mom called her that. She told me this like it was a warning. We matched on Hinge, and she actually messaged first. Already rare enough. She wrote something clever about my bio, not a cheesy line. Just this dry, perfectly timed observation that made me smirk at my phone. No emojis. No lol, just words. Punctuated, thought out. I like that. Most of my conversations on those apps died in a sea of hey or what you doing. Stan felt different. Crisp, efficient. She picked a spot too. Said she knew a place with good food and minimal distractions. Nobody phrases it like that. Minimal distractions. It sounded like she was booking a conference room. But I figured maybe she just hated loud restaurants, or maybe she had some sensory quirks. Didn't overthink it. When I pulled up, I almost thought I was in the wrong spot. It wasn't downtown or tucked in some trendy district. The restaurant sat on the end of a quiet residential street, across from a laundromat and a tax prep office with bars on the windows. The front door had no sign. Just a faded black awning and a handwritten note taped to the glass. Cash only. Inside, the place was dim. Not cozy dim. Ominous dim. Real candles flickered on every table, their wax dripping unchecked onto saucers. No music played. Just the faint hum of a refrigerator in the back and the occasional clink of dishes from a kitchen I couldn't see. My footsteps sounded too loud as I crossed the room. I felt like I was trespassing. She was already there. Sitting with her back straight, hands folded neatly in her lap, eyes locked on the door. When I walked in, she turned her head as though she'd been expecting me at that exact second. Not a smile, not a wave. Just a blink, slow and deliberate, followed by a small nod. She stood. Not casually, but like she'd rehearsed that motion, and shook my hand. Firm grip, no hesitation. Then she sat again, unfolded her napkin with precise movements, and draped it across her lap like she was in a black and white film. I remember thinking, this feels like a job interview. We ordered quickly. I tried to buy time by asking questions about the menu, but she just waited silently until I placed my order. Then she handed the menu back to the waiter and said, "I'll have the same." No hesitation. No glance at the options. Just, "That's fine." The waiter left. That's when the questions started. Not flirty questions. Not the "so what kind of music are you into" variety. No. These were sharp. Blunt. Like she was running diagnostics. Have you ever been afraid of dying alone? I laughed awkward, thinking it was a joke. But she didn't laugh. Just stared at me with those still dark eyes like she was noting my reaction. She leaned in slightly. Do you ever get the feeling someone's watching you, even when you know they aren't? I tried to make a joke of it. Said something about how that was just Instagram ads listening to me. But she didn't blink, no smile, no acknowledgement. Just silence until I trailed off. I asked about her work, desperate to shift the vibe. She said she was between jobs. Not nervous about it. Not apologetic, just flat. Then she added, I'm focusing on alignment. Tying up loose ends. I asked what that meant. She tilted her head, studying me like a lab rat, and said, cycles. I didn't know. Our food arrived. I picked up my fork, tried to act normal. The silence pressed down on me. I cracked a dumb joke about how serious the place felt, like it should have come with a warning sign. That's when she leaned forward, elbows on the table, chin in her hand, eyes locked on mine. She whispered, Don't worry, I didn't poison yours. Then finally she smiled, just for a second, a small curl of her lips. And then it was gone. I laughed because what else do you do? What's the alternative? Call a waiter over and demand a test kit. I laughed that she didn't join me. She just leaned back and folded her hands again. Watch me. She never touched her fork, never sipped her water, never broke eye contact. I asked lightly if she was going to eat. She shook her head once. Not hungry. The plate sat in front of her, untouched, identical to mine. Full portion. Clean edges. I couldn't stop glancing at it. Couldn't stop imagining that she'd ordered the same dish just to have a duplicate in front of me. Like a mirrored set piece. At one point, she asked if I felt off. I forced a grin. Nope, feel fine. Her brows twitched upward, surprised, not disappointed, just like she'd been expecting another answer. That was enough for me. I set my fork down, mumbled something about needing the bathroom. She nodded. I'll wait. I didn't go to the bathroom. I went to the front, dropped cash on the counter without asking for change, and walked straight outside. My chest was tight like I just sprinted. My keys shook in my hand as I unlocked my car. Once I was inside, I locked the doors. Sat there in silence, heart pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. I don't know of Amy Bolt. Maybe instinct. Maybe that animal brain alarm bell that rings when something's just wrong. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. A text from her. You left before the best part. That was all it said. I didn't reply, blocked her number, deleted the app. But when I finally crawled into bed that night, I couldn't stop thinking about the way she hadn't touched her food, the precision of her movements, the certainty in her questions like she already knew what I'd say. And then the weirdest part. At 3:12 a.m., I woke to the sound of my doorbell ringing. I live alone. Second floor, small building. Nobody comes unannounced. I sat frozen in bed, staring at the ceiling, the echo of that single chime pulsing through my chest. When I finally worked up the nerve to look through the peephole, there was no one there. Just the hallway. Empty. Silent. But I swear I smelled candle wax. I didn't clock it right away. I really didn't. The first part of the night felt chill, almost too chill, in a way that made everything afterward feel even more messed up. His name was Jude. We matched on a Sunday. One of those lazy weekends where I was swiping for the dopamine hit more than anything else. His profile wasn't trying too hard. Black hoodie selfie. One blurry photo of him skateboarding. A bio that just said, good with my hands. That should have been a red flag. It was cocky without being clever, vague without being funny. But I rolled my eyes, hit like, and moved on. He messaged instantly. No pickup line. No, hey beautiful. Just a plain hey period at the end. Something about that tiny dot made it feel heavier, like he was closing a sentence that hadn't even started. We talked, not a lot. His replies were short, dry, almost detached. He sent voice notes where he sounded bored, like every word had to be pulled out of him. But there was something about his voice, measured, slow, like he was testing each phrase before he released it, waiting to see if I'd flinch. He picked the place, a diner on the edge of town. You know the kind. Neon sign buzzing half dead, booths patched with duct tape, laminated menus sticky with syrup that never comes off. Photos of pancakes that nobody's ordered in decades. It felt casual. Safe, even. Like the opposite of a fancy setup where expectations are high. He was already there when I walked in, sitting in a booth by the window. He didn't stand up, didn't smile, just lifted his chin once, nodded at the seat across from him, and waited. No hug, no small talk, just business. I ordered a grilled cheese and fries, comfort food. He ordered nothing, just coffee. When it came, he drank it black, no sugar. He stirred it with his spoon anyway, like there was something invisible in there he needed to dissolve. The clinking sound of the spoon against the mug was steady, rhythmic, over and over until it drilled into my head. He started asking questions. Not normal first date questions. No, what do you do? Or, seen any good shows lately? He asked about my childhood. Not in a cute, what cartoons did you watch way. No, he asked. Were you scared of the dark as a kid? I laughed thinking it was a joke, but he didn't laugh back. Then, did you have any phobias? I tried to deflect, asked him about his. He just stared at me, unblinking, and waited until I answered. Then, have you ever sleepwalked? Each question dug a little deeper. I chewed fries slowly, trying to play along, but my stomach was already tightening. He never broke eye contact. His gaze wasn't searching or soft or curious. It was clinical, like he was logging data. The food came. I picked up my sandwich just to give my hand something to do. That's when he reached into his jacket and pulled out a pocket knife. Not a huge one, just one of those flip knives you can buy at gas stations. Black handle, silver blade, scuffed and worn from use. He didn't announce it, didn't explain. Just flipped it open with a practiced snap and said, almost casually, "Want to see something cool?" Before I could answer, he started spinning it around his fingers. Not clumsy, not showing off, just automatic, like he'd done it 1,000 times. The blade glinted under the fluorescent diner lights, catching flashes of chrome and red neon as it cut little arcs in the air. He twirled it over his knuckles, balanced it, flipped it into his palm. The whole time, his eyes never left mine. That's when it happened. The slip. Not big, just a tiny catch on his index finger. The edge nicked him clean, and a bead of red welled up instantly. I gasped. He didn't. He looked down, saw the blood, and didn't flinch. Didn't swear, didn't react at all. Just dabbed at it with a diner napkin, folded the napkin neatly, and went right back to spinning the blade. Faster this time. Sharper. Like it hadn't happened. I asked, carefully, softly, why he carried it. He shrugged, rolled the knife between his fingers, and said, "I like having something real in my hand. Something with weight." Then he looked up. You never really know someone unless you see how they react to pain. I stopped eating. He smiled. Not wide, not goofy, just a slow curl at the edge of his mouth, like he landed on the exact answer he wanted me to hear. Then he asked if I wanted to try. The knife. Said he'd teach me how to spin it. Said it was safe if you trust yourself. I told him I was clumsy, that I'd drop it. "That's the point," he said. Something in me snapped awake then. Fight or flight, loud as an alarm. I started mentally mapping the exits. Bathroom to the left, front door near the register, back door past the kitchen. The diner was half full, but nobody was paying attention. Nobody saw the blade. Nobody heard the words. I mumbled something about needing the bathroom. He nodded once, spoon still stirring his empty coffee. I'll wait. I didn't go to the bathroom. I went straight past it, out the back door and into the night air. Didn't run. Didn't look back. Just walked fast, heart hammering, until I hit the curb and pulled up the Uber app. Surge pricing, whatever. Didn't care. I just needed distance. He texted me once that night. Just one message. "You left before the good part." Blocked. Deleted the app. I thought that was the end. But a few days later, my friend sent me a screenshot from Reddit. The thread was, "Girls, what's your creepiest first date?" And buried in the comments was him. The black hoodie. The diner. The knife tricks. The same questions about fear and sleepwalking. Dozens of replies under it. Some saying they'd match with him. Some saying they'd seen him do the same routine. It wasn't just me. I wasn't special. I was just next in line. This was supposed to be my bounce back date. Like get back out there night after a string of dry months. A situationship that ended with a voice memo and a middle finger emoji. I wasn't expecting sparks or fireworks. Just a normal dinner with a stranger who'd be pleasant enough to eat fries with and forget about by morning. Best case scenario. Mutual ghosting. Clean. Easy. Her name was Kayla. We matched on Bumble on a Wednesday night while I was half watching Netflix and swiping just to fill the silence. She had blonde hair in messy waves and one picture where the sunlight caught it in a way that looked accidental but probably wasn't. In another, I noticed a small tattoo near her collarbone, something cursive too blurry to read. Her bio said, "A fan of trouble but in the cute way." I figured that meant tequila shots, karaoke disasters, maybe sneaking into a rooftop pool. Not what it actually meant. We agreed to meet at a gastropub downtown, one of those places that tries too hard. Edison bulbs dangling like spiderwebs, recycled wood tables, overpriced cocktails garnished with herbs that belong in a garden. indie music blaring just loud enough to make you lean in when you talk. I got there 5 minutes early. She arrived 10 minutes late, but she walked in with a kind of smile that made it feel like I was late, like I had just caught up to her story. She hugged me right away, easy and familiar, and asked what I was drinking before I could even say hello. Then she ordered something with gin and a flower floating on top. From the start, she talked fast, not nervous fast, just like she had too many thoughts and not enough minutes. She asked sharp, strange questions. What my first memory was, whether I ever thought about running away from my life just for fun, if I believed people could sense when someone was watching them. I laughed silently every Monday. She laughed too, a little louder than expected, then took a long, slow sip of her drink like she was rewarding herself. We ordered food. She barely touched hers, just nudged fries around her plate while talking about how exhausting it was to live like a normal person. She kept saying she wanted to reset everything, like her life was an app glitching in the background. I chalked it up to artsy drama. The Taiku journals in lowercase and posts blurry golden hour selfies with captions like healing. But then the doors slammed open. 2 cops walked in. Not security. Not mall cops. Real police, heavy belts clinking, hands ready at their holsters. The music cut to silence. Conversations died mid-sentence. The whole room froze like we were extras in the wrong movie. They scanned the room once, then again, and then started walking straight toward us. My body went cold, every muscle stiffened at once. I tried to rewind through my life for any law I might have accidentally broken. Old parking tickets. Skipping out on jury duty. Undertipping that one time in college. Nothing fit. My heart hammered anyway. I glanced at Kayla. She was still smiling, but it was different now. Tighter. Controlled. The cops stopped at our table. One of them said her name, her full name. She didn't argue, didn't play dumb, just sighed, set her napkin down with perfect calm, and said, "Yeah, that's me." Then the cups hit the table. The sound was sharp, metallic, final. She stood without protest, held her wrists out like she'd done it before. But as the officer began reading her rights, she whipped her head toward me and screamed. My name. Clear, loud, so loud the entire restaurant turned. "He's with me. Helen, please, don't let them say it was all me." My stomach bottomed out. She kept yelling. My name over and over, handled with phrases like, "You said you'd cover for me, and you were there too, admit it." I sat there frozen, clutching my fork like it was a lifeline. The cops didn't look at me right away. Just one quick glance, long enough to make my blood stop moving. Then back to her. One of them told me firmly to stay seated. Kayla kept screaming as they dragged her out. Her voice echoed through the room, bouncing off wood and glass, sharp enough to leave bruises. By the time the doors closed behind them, every eye in the restaurant was still locked on me. The silence that followed was worse than the yelling. A waitress crept over after a minute, her face pale, and asked if I was okay. I don't know, I said, and it was true. I asked for the check. She told me it was covered. Out of pity? Out of fear? I didn't argue. I walked to my car expecting a third officer to grab my shoulder at any second. My chest stayed tight the whole drive home, like a seatbelt I couldn't unbuckle. That night, I sat in the dark, refreshing Google with shaking hands. Her name, plus the word arrest. And there she was. Kayla. Wanted for months. Fraud. Identity theft. Something about stolen credit cards and fake accounts. Skipping a court date. The article even mentioned potential accomplices. My name wasn't there. Not yet. I deleted Bumble immediately. Blocked her number. Switched my socials to private. But for 2 weeks, every time a cop car passed, my heart stopped. Every knock at my door made me picture handcuffs waiting behind it. Because the way she screamed my name, that wasn't panic. It was planned.